Welcome to my channel, Transphobe Cringe, where we go over the most cringe-worthy arguments people have against the existence of trans people. Not only do I have a Reddit, not only am I a Redditor, I am a trans Redditor, but sometimes I like to check out the other side. Sometimes I like to see what the newest and greatest hate speech is, and just check it out, see if I'm missing anything. So today I'm going to head over to the hate speech underbelly of the internet called r/gender critical. I'm going to roll and get a 20 for gender critical. This place is about women-born women fighting for women. They are trans exclusionary radical feminists, which, if you haven't heard the term, TERF, they came up with it themselves, and it's coming to bite them in the ass, and they're not happy about it, but they are trans exclusionary, so they love all women except the trans ones. Yeah, they're just shitty people. They have a section called Peak Trans. Fun fact, Peak Trans is what I have affectionately nicknamed my Basically, this subreddit is a place where you can anonymously talk about that one time you had a person come to you and talk about how they're questioning their gender identity and that made you incredibly uncomfortable. Or a time you saw a documentary and you thought it was weird, therefore trans people don't exist. Or that time you felt incredibly threatened in your own gender and you think that if trans people exist, you have to transition and we're gonna force it on you. It's just general scaremongering, but I have been introduced to words like transing, as in the person I know didn't go through with transing, and I find that very delightful. I am blessed enough to be amused by these assholes more than I am offended, so let's get to it. Quick note, I haven't read these before. I've read one or two of them. This is going to be a kind of off-the-cuff riffing on their bullshit. If I get some things wrong, I get some things wrong, so be it. Content warning for misgendering, slurs, the whole 9 yards. This is by user deleted. We have, I'm not going to read most of the usernames, but I'm fond of that one. 33 points. When I was a child, myself and my cousins, both male and female, were taught to sew, knit, crochet, cook, clean, and we were also busy out building forts, playing cowboys and Indians. It was the 60s. Note that here our user cares about bigotry. And all of us were dressed in clothes that allowed us to play whatever we wanted. There was no distinction made. We were taught the life skills we needed. In parentheses, my father knitted his own socks when at sea, as our parents could foresee. I never believed in trans as an actual medical issue outside of mental health issues to begin with. I see it... Pause. First of all, I like the sentence, I never believed in trans. So this is a thing people get wrong a lot of the time. Transness is not a mental health issue. Sometimes you do need to see a therapist before you can get hormones, which I have opinions on. The mental health community and the medical community does interact with the trans community, but it's a lot like pregnancy. It's not an issue, it's not a disease, it's not anything like that. It's just a circumstance in life that happens to intersect with the medical community. But if you in the comments want to make an argument for how being a dude is a mental health issue, I'm all ears. Generally, it's not. If there were any kind of medical issue with it, it wouldn't be my identity. It would be my body. My body would be the medical issue. If you want to take it that route and look at it that way, but I prefer not to. I prefer to see it as just a bit of diversity that happens. But not our user. Back to the paragraph. I see it as a vilely misogynistic way of looking at women. Oh, pause. I think a vilely misogynistic way of looking at women is to boil them down to their genitals and say that you aren't a real woman if you don't have the kind of parts that I expect. And I view male trans as perverted And I view male trans as perverted parodies of stereotypical pornified womanhood. And I view male trans, me. Whenever they say male trans, you're not insulting trans women by saying male trans. Male trans refers to a different thing, which is me, because I am a trans man. I view male trans as perverted parodies of stereotypical pornified womanhood. But for me, peak trans came when I realized, when watching a documentary-style program on this young boy that pretends to be a girl, jazz hands or something, that if I were born in this generation... So she watched a documentary on Jazz, which is, Jazz is a wonderful, lovely woman, and very, very inspirational trans figure. The poster's immediate thought was that if transition had been allowed in their time and age, they would have transitioned, which... I'm just saying, go to a therapist if your reason to be transphobic is because you're worried that if transness is allowed, you might, quote-unquote, choose to be trans. Anyway, that if I were born in this generation, I wouldn't be allowed to be a child. I would be forced into a box that said boy, and my hormone system and reproductive system would probably be hormoned to death. Pause. I want to be hormoned to death. That is the way I want to go. That is what I want in my will. Please, I am preety, I'm really dysphoric. If someone can make hormoned to death happen for me, at this point I'd take it. Just because you played cowboys and Indians when you were a kid does not mean anyone's forcing you to transition. It's actually really hard to get hormones. I'm in the process of experiencing how difficult it is to convince your therapist to give you hormones, or endocrinologist, or get an informed letter of consent. There isn't a trans police that shows up to your doors and says, you've cross-dressed too many times, now you must be injected with hormones. That's not the way it works. I would be, utterly, majorly, grossly fucked over in the name of the cult of trans. The fear-mongering, there's so much of it. I will, until my dying day, oppose inclusion of male trans in female female safe spaces, which I agree with. As a trans man, I would not want to go into your little bubble, and as a decent person, I would not want to go into your little bubble ever. So, that is our first installment of Shit Transphobes Say. I will be back for more. Perverted parodies of stereotypical pornified. Okay. No.